Hello everyone. It is officially in my book early fall. We're now in September. It's the 10th of September, the day that I'm recording this. And as many of you know, especially those of you who are OG followers of the channel, this is my favorite time of year. I am super inspired and I feel really creative, and I just work with so many decks this time of year. And over the years, my favorite decks for early fall, late fall, and early fall, fall, and late fall tend to get the most views on the channel. So I want to say thank you to everyone for always requesting this and for supporting, these videos and the channel for so many years. So I have a lot of decks. Well, at least a lot more than I have in the, most of our videos for what decks, what witchy decks and mood I'm going to be in for early fall. And I just want to talk a little bit about kind of what I'm feeling energetically, kind of in the air and personally at this time, because I always like to start these videos with that, just as an explanation for why I'm working with specific decks. And then I'll get into showing you all the beautiful decks and talking about how you might want to work with them in your own spiritual practice. So as I said, this is always a very creatively just fluid and abundant time for me when I feel like the most connected to my path and to the elements and nature herself as she prepares to die, to go into hibernation, right? There's that beauty of the changing colors of the leaves and the cooler air, and there's more, the days are shorter here in New England, and you just really feel this sense of the shift, right? And it's that very liminal space that I always find really groovy and exciting. So that feeling has definitely got me working on a lot of personal creative projects, and in my spare time, artistic projects that really excite me and get me staying up late, coloring all night, or painting, or working with just different artistic mediums that allow me to express myself and where I am on my journey in really fun and versatile ways. So I've been feeling a lot of that personally, that call to artistically express myself. My son and I, Vincent and I, have like decked our house out for Halloween. We're like ready to go already, and so that's been really fun. And of course, for this time of year, we kind of want those witchier, darker themed decks to work with. And the decks on this list, some of them I've been working with throughout the summer, but a few others I've pulled out specifically for this time of year, and I'm really excited to do more in-depth personal work using the decks themselves. So that being said, that's kind of energetically where I'm at. And I do think societally now, energetically, it feels like there's a big energy in my little corner of the world in relation to like looking deep within ourselves and exploring who we are. There are times when I'll talk a lot about shadow work with everyone, and I seem to see that come up in a lot of readings. The energy now feels more like a turning inward to understand oneself. Really working with the Hermit card, if you will, and of course we are in the month of September, and for Virgos, we look at that as a birth card for Virgos, many of us. So there is a sense of the Hermit, but not in a necessarily a shadow work way. For me, it's felt more like looking within and getting to know ourselves. So let's talk about the decks. I'm going to start with the Halloween Oracle because it's the quintessential Halloween deck. And, I've said a lot about this deck over the years, but I do always work with it this time of year. And a lot of it has to do with, the fact that it's the Halloween Oracle, and it's got that kitschy sense of how we view Halloween from a popularized standpoint and work with that energy. So this is my favorite image in the deck, obviously. Jimmy Manton did the artwork, and Stacy DeMarco created this deck. It's a really good deck for daily draws and kind of an additional pull to a tarot spread. I like using this deck for that a lot. And the keywords will really get you where you need to go, even if you feel like the imagery isn't making sense for you. And if you're someone who chooses to work with spirit animal guides, etc., this deck can be a great option for that as well. And if you like to bring in werewolf and vampire myth, you might want to bring in some more medium work for your personal practice, this is a deck that's very supportive of that. So this deck is just fun. It embraces the kitschiness of Halloween, and I use it every Halloween. I've never not, after all these years. It's a beautiful deck, and it's a lot of fun. You know, is it an essential deck in my practice? No, but is it fun to work with at this time of year? Absolutely. So that's the Halloween Oracle by Stacey DeMarco, published by Blue Angel. Let me see. Let me do it like this. We're gonna do this a little bit more. I'm gonna go along with the Halloween theme. So the next deck is the Oracle of Shadows and Light, also another Blue Angel deck. This is by Lucy Cavendish and Jasmine Beckett Griffith. Of course, there's the backing. This is one also over the years. I don't use this deck all the time, but September, October, November are definitely months where I like to work with her. She has a very clear personality, and she will really get right to the heart of the matter. So she's great for shadow work or for personal exploration. And the feel of this deck is moody as well. It lends itself perfectly to the spirit of Halloween and the Sabbath of Samhain, you know, to that liminal space. And if you're wanting to get clear messages from your guides and more insight again into oneself, this is a beautiful deck to do that with. So this is the Oracle of Shadows and Light. It is kind of geared to more of a teen audience, so if you're using the guidebook, I would say, you know, apply some of the wording to your adult situation versus a teen situation. But I still love this deck, and over the years, use it on occasion still. So, Les Vampires. This deck I use often. I love this deck. While the backings are not my favorite, and I've talked about that a lot, this is a very clear deck for shadow work, and it's very witchy and vampiric in nature as far as the artwork goes. And so this is another great one to have when you're in that personal explorative state, and when you're really feeling inspired and kind of want to craft, you know, tarot spreads with deeper meaning that look beyond just the surface of things. This is another deck by Lucy Cavendish and Jasmine Beckett Griffith. And the artwork is beautiful. Some of my favorite images by Jasmine Beckett Griffith are in this deck. And really focused more on the myth of vampires. So, you know, if you're not into that, it may not be the deck for you. And if you have to choose between Oracle of Shadows and Light and the Les Vampires deck, I would say go with the Les Vampires Oracle. She packs a pretty strong punch, this girl. This deck is not sugar and spice and everything nice. She's pretty hardcore. She's going to give it to you straight. And there is a lot of opportunity for journaling that comes through with the Les Vampires Oracle. So that's next on the list. These really aren't in any particular order, except for the last few that I'm going to mention, which are like number 1, number 2, number 3 on my list right now. So I'm going to move over to tarot. We just did 3 oracles. So this is the Tarot of Haunted House. I always call it the Haunted House Tarot, and I think there's another deck similarly named to this, so I'm checking my box here. It's Tarot of Haunted House here. I freaking love this backing. It's like my favorite, it's one of my favorite tarot backings. I wish these cards were a little bit bigger, but it's a Scarabeo deck. So this is one of my favorite decks around this time of year. Pretty much, yes, the backings are definitely a big part of it, but also it does kind of have that like 70s Christopher Lee horror movie feel to it, which I love. And it's a very, very, because it follows Rider-Waite-Smith symbolism pretty truly, that doesn't sound like correct English, but anyhow, because it does follow traditional Rider-Waite-Smith symbolism very closely, it's very easy and fluid to read with. And so if you are looking for something that gets right down into like yes or no, this is a really great deck for that. It's a really great deck for that. And something about it just feels like it's like a sibling that I'm talking to who's giving me advice. And maybe I don't always want to hear it, but the advice is pretty spot on. This deck always feels like that to me. So the Haunted House Tarot is on the list. Really, really love this deck, and it's a lot of fun to work with this time of year too. So along those lines, I also have the Ludi Lesket Tarot out here. I've recently done a video on a viewer request series talking about this deck, as it's one I used a great deal many years ago, and am reconnecting with it now at this time. So it has a very New Orleans, voodoo, dark fairy tale feel to it. It's a very gritty deck, and it's a lot of, I have a lot of fun working with it. I love the way that her personality shines through. I like telling a story with the spreads that I draw from her. And much like the Haunted House Tarot, she can be short and sweet and to the point as well. Or you can hang out and have a glass of whiskey with her. She's that girl. And you don't have to feel embarrassed for being who you are with her. You know what I mean? Like, she's seen it all. You're not going to surprise the Ludi Lesket Tarot. But you can be honest with her because you know she's not judging you. So this is the Ludi Lesket Tarot. Really love that deck. It's perfectly moody for this time of year. Let's see, where do I want to go to next? We'll do the Elkey. So if you're watching this and you're looking for more of an affirmational deck and something to use in addition to your tarot deck, this is a really great option. So this is the Elkey Oracle, and this is by, I'm going to butcher this and I really do apologize, Melanie Delon and Arwen Lynch Poe, the Elkey Tarot. This is the backing. It's very much based around the sacred feminine and working with goddesses and archetypes like that. The artwork is stunning. In fact, a friend of mine were recently talking about working with this deck and just how beautiful the artwork is. And to me, it's very much, you know, a deck that works for meditative journeying, in addition to a tarot spread, getting down into the spiritual heart of the matter for yourself. To go back to kind of our theme for this early fall, like getting to know yourself, getting to know your inner realms, this is a really lovely deck to do that with. It's definitely not necessarily Halloween themed or spooky season themed or Samhain themed, but it is a really beautiful deck, and it's one that is on my list to work with over the next few months and really get a lot out of. I'm excited to connect with her more. But she has a very beautiful, soft voice, and I'm excited to, again, connect with her more, but also to use her in, I think, a special meditative journey for myself as well. So then I have the Hush Tarot. I've talked about this deck on my channel. I believe I've done a full review. I know I've done a reveal, but I believe I've done a full review. The Hush Tarot by Jeremy Hush is just one of, if you are someone who likes to work with Fae energy right now, this is a great deck to connect with that energy through. And it's not strictly true to Rider-Waite-Smith, so it gives you a creative outlet as well to journey and storytell yourself with, to experience cards that you traditionally read a certain way in a new way. And it just fits with the feel of this time of year in northern New England really beautifully, I think. So I'm very excited to do a lot more with this deck. She's really, really beautiful. There's the sun too. Isn't that gorgeous? But I love this deck. And if you like to work with the fairies, if you like Brian Froud's Fairies Oracle and the Heart of Fairies Oracle, I think you will really appreciate this deck as well. So that's the Hush Tarot. I'm like putting everything back in their boxes, guys. Sorry. If you are someone who is wanting to do shadow work right now, the Lantern Oracle, I've been like raving about this deck. You guys know I recently taught a workshop where I recommended using this deck on connecting with Hecate and working and walking with her. If you're doing shadow work of any sort, and you want a deck that's going to assist you in that work, as well as giving you guidance, outside of just doing the shadow work, but then how to move forward and continue to integrate into your, you know, daily conscious life. This is a beautiful deck to do that with. And it works well for this time of year because as we are being drawn and called to go within in the season of, you know, in the season of autumn or fall, as we're preparing for that hibernation that winter represents, this is a deck that's going to naturally be part of that ebb and flow for us. And so the Lantern Oracle by Angelina Mirabito with illustrations by Yulia Alejo. This deck is, it's so worth the investment in my opinion. This is like one of my favorite images. I just love this deck so much, and it's really, really powerful. Like I said, it's designed for shadow work. It's friendly and helpful, but it is a shadow work deck. So it's going to focus on those patterns and wounds that you're trying to integrate, understand, and bring back into a sense of balance in your life. So that's the Lantern Oracle. It's on my list, my personal list for this season. And I really, really highly recommend that deck if you feel called to work with it. Another deck that I'm going to be posting a full review of very soon, guys. Some of you have asked me, and it's going to happen, is the Serpent Fire Tarot, which, as I've mentioned recently, I really didn't like when I revealed it. But as I have been reading for clients with her, she has a super big personality. She loves working with others. She loves being a part of readings, and she is very, very... This is a deck you could use very comfortably for shadow work, I feel. Now, I should say, and I apologize, I didn't say this at the beginning, there is nudity in this deck, but it's very much a deck of the sacred feminine. It's very, very much evocative of like Sekhmet and Egyptian mythology and Egyptian goddesses. So, you know, it's like Sekhmet, Mot, Isis, the whole, like Bast, you feel all of them in here. But this deck, seriously, I have really, really been enjoying working with her. And of course, as many of you know, this is my favorite Empress ever because Elizabeth Taylor's Cleopatra is represented on it. So this is a stunning deck, Serpent Fire Tarot, and it's really, really great. If you feel called to work with it, I think she works very well. Even just the color theme for this time of year, she lends herself very well to that. So where do I want to go next? So these three decks are like my most... These are the ones that I'm using the most over the next couple months. And I am sure it is no surprise to you at all that one of those is the Tarot of Vampires by Ian Daniels. This is still my original copy, guys. Can we just get real? Now, I have trimmed this, and I did edge the deck in red using red permanent marker. So if you purchase this deck now, it's not going to look like this one does. You'll have to do some, you know, creative hobby work and expression in order to get her to look like this. But this is my original copy. This puppy is, I think, over 10 years old now. And my love for this deck only grows deeper with time. She's always on my main altar at home. I love this deck. And I am so blessed and honored that in the tarot community, I am able to talk about her all the time. And so thank you for listening to me talk about her all the time. But this is one of my favorite decks for early fall, for spooky season, for getting in those vibes. And it is a very multi-layered, multi-dimensional deck. The guidebook is, in my opinion, if you want to get serious about tarot, an absolute must-read, even if you don't like the imagery. And it's just, it's such an incredible deck. I love her so much. And like I said, there are so many layers. You can read very surface with this deck, or you can go all the way with her, like just all the way. So, and you can use her for shadow work. She's wonderful for shadow work. She's wonderful for those deeper connections. She's just absolutely stunning. So this is the Tarot of Vampires, and I will be using her personally as well as with clients over the next couple months. and she's in this is my top 3. We're at the top 3, guys. You made it this far. But she's always, always, always on my list for every season, but especially this season. We're very excited to work together. So also on this list is the Darkwood Tarot. This is another deck that I cannot get enough of her. I just want to snuggle up to her all the time with a glass of red wine and a loaf of fresh bread and just like have my me time with her. You know what I mean? She just is really, really beautifully in alignment with that. And again, I was talking to one of my friends, very dear friend recently, about this deck, and to me she is so because there isn't so much going on in the imagery, there's almost a sense of peacefulness that comes along with working with her, even though she could technically be called a darker themed deck. And you also really get the feel of moving through the witch's journey in tarot with her. So I adore this deck so much. It's such a joy and an honor to get to work with her. She loves to do readings, and she also loves to be very present for my personal work too. She's another deck that's always on my main altar. And I love this image of the Two of Cups. Isn't that beautiful, guys? I just love this deck so much. So if you've been on the fence about purchasing this deck, I highly recommend it. The guidebook is really good as well. It allows you to kind of approach, again, if you're a seasoned reader, if you've been reading for a while, her guidebook really allows you to kind of re-examine your perspective on certain cards, which I find super refreshing. I love it when a guidebook causes me to say, oh wow, I've always read like the Four of Pentacles this way, but now I'm being given something fresh to consider. And I love that. And this the guidebook for this deck definitely offers you that. Isn't this image gorgeous? I'm sorry, I just can't. It's so beautiful. So this is the Darkwood Tarot. I edged the deck in black with black permanent marker. So if you purchase this, it's going to look a little bit different. If you want to make it a little more moody, you can edge the deck with black permanent marker. But I love, 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 love this deck. My number one deck is the Samhain Oracle, the Witch's Samhain Oracle. I was so reticent to buy this deck, but one of my friends encouraged me to, and she was so right, and I am so grateful that she was like, no, you've really got to experience this deck. Not only is it perfectly in alignment with the Sabbath of Samhain, and we're moving into that space on the Wheel of the Year as people who follow pagan or alternative paths, but this deck is amazing if you do connect with the Wheel of the Year, and if you work with darker faces of the goddess, and you're wanting to do shadow work, or you really want to bring some depth to your practice. This deck is wonderful for it. It's not just for readings. You can also use it for ritual in a really impactful way. And the guidebook and the spreads in the guidebook are absolutely worth the money, in my opinion. I think it's a really great guidebook. And like I said, and I said in my review of this deck too, those spreads are worth trying out. Even if you're like me and you don't normally use spreads, you will get a lot out of those spreads. And I come back to those spreads in my personal practice regularly. So this deck is amazeballs. I freaking love it. It's my number one on the list because it's just very much in alignment with who I am as a reader and a healer and a priestess and as a witch. And I am so excited that a deck was really just so, it just feels like it was very intentionally and lovingly crafted. This deck wasn't thrown together, you know, and I love that. So that is the Witch's Oracle, the Samhain Oracle. This is my list, guys. I love this time of year. I'm so just, I feel like it's like, I end up like waking up this time of year. It's not like I get more tired or that kind of thing. I am like one of those people who's just more awake and more open and just excited this time of year. And I love my practice this time of year, and I really like it to be very ritualistic in nature and bring in all the things, whereas at other times of the year I'll talk about how I really like to pare down my practice. This is a time where it's very much about decadence and bring everything to the table. So these decks are rich, they're lush, they all are their own stories and characters, and they're really fun to work with. So I highly recommend any of them if you feel drawn to pull any of these decks out for your own practice right now. And if you're someone who's really inspired by fall or who struggles to find your way into the energy of autumn and fall, and this place on the wheel of the year, any of these decks can help you to kind of align with that energy and to really feel inspired on your journey with that. So I just want to say thank you so much to everyone for joining in watching this video if you've made it this far. And thank you for all of the support you've all given me over the years, and especially for this video in the viewer request series. This one always gets lots and lots of requests and lots of views, so I just want to say thank you for that. I'm really looking forward to more videos. I've got a few more coming to the channel next week as well, so be on the watch for that. And of course, more videos on working with the energy of autumn, the Sabbath of Samhain, and just some more, personalized sharing that I'm going to do around that Sabbath this year as well. So I am sending you much love and many blessings. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.